Welcome back to Get Down to Business, the show about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. We know that customer-centric companies are 60% more profitable than companies that aren't, with customer experience being one of the leading factors in differentiating competing industries today. Additionally, 87% of leaders agree that prioritizing employee happiness provides a competitive advantage. But man, this is a challenge. And we know that this is something that so many business owners, businesses are struggling with. And that's why we brought on Greg Kihlström, the author of House of the Customer. Greg is a best-selling author, speaker, entrepreneur, currently an advisor and consultant to top companies. Greg, welcome to the program. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, looking forward to talking with you.
What an important topic that I know listeners reach out to me all about all the time. So let's dive right in. What are some of the factors that are driving businesses' needs to transform to be more customer-centric?
Yeah, I mean, I think from the customer perspective, there's just simply more choice, and there are more brands to not only choose from, but there are more brands that are competing based on customer experience. And some of the statistics you mentioned, very compelling in that. Another one that I saw the other day was with, I think, almost 3/4 of customers these days, it's as important or more important to have a good customer experience than it is to have a good product or service. And so, all of that kind of combining is, it's just driving competition in the space, and it's causing companies to look at, beyond, again, building a great product or service. What is it like to use that product or service? And, with things like this started back in the early days of social media, but customers talk with one another and they share things, whether it's on social or, through other means. There's a lot more talk about brands and experiences with brands, ratings, reviews. So just a lot more pressure to make sure that the entire experience is great.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I'm chatting with Greg Kihlström, who is also the host of the Agile Brand podcast. And I know you've worked with so many different companies and businesses. But it's interesting. One of the things that I've discovered is that, again, being customer-centric is something that's a unifier between big businesses and small businesses. So, Greg, I'm curious, are there goals that every business should be aspiring to, regardless of size, to achieve in order to remain competitive?
Yeah, definitely. And I think a small business versus a large enterprise may approach these differently, but there's a few things. I mean, first, companies need to offer a one-to-one personalized experience. And so if you are a very small company, you might actually already be doing that to a degree, because chances are a lot of your customers, and you greet them by name when they walk in the store, or you have them on the phone or whatever. As a very large organization, you certainly can't do that with millions of customers. And so you have to do that through digital means and through personalization and databases and everything like that. But that need to personalize and offer this multi-channel, omni-channel kind of experience, that's I think that's shared amongst all. And I think another big one is understanding the lifetime value of a customer, which I come from a marketing background and ran a marketing agency for a number of years before I sold it. And, we were very focused often on new customer acquisition, which is very important. Everybody needs new customers. But having also done sales for most of my career, I can tell you it's a lot easier to keep an existing customer than it is to win a new one. And so this idea of customer lifetime value really looks at the long term and the long play here of, let's get new customers by all means, but let's get potentially valuable customers, and let's keep our existing customers so that they can build increased value there as well.
Absolutely. So it's an interesting title for the book, House of the Customer. And I know that's very intentional, like everything you do. So again, I'm chatting with Greg Kihlström, who's the author of this book, House of the Customer. So what is that house? What is the House of the Customer? And why is it helpful to think of building the customer experience this way?
Yeah, what I wanted to do, I've spent a lot of time over the last few years working with, I would say primarily in the enterprise space, so the large, Fortune 500 company space, and I wanted to write a book about how do they do things like the two goals that I just described and a bit more, how do they actually do this? Because I think everybody agrees with the premise of, yes, we should offer good customer experiences. Nobody needs to be told that. There's a million books on that. But what I wanted to do was, write something that explained, well, okay, we agree on this. How do you do it? And so I used the metaphor of a house with all the component parts, and there's a foundation that's really the culture and the agile culture of the customer centric culture of the organization. There's the roof, which is the processes and the operations, which kind of guides everything. And then, there's other component parts in there that look at business goals and outcomes, and then how we look at customer data and serving customers with content and offers and things like that. And so using the component parts of a house, it's a nice metaphor. Most people get that pretty easily. And it also helps to break what is a very complex, lots of moving parts down into pieces so that you can analyze. And, as a business, you may be really strong in some areas, but there may be other areas where you're weaker. And so therefore you can focus on those parts and not feel like you have to rebuild an entire house from scratch.
Absolutely. So the $1 million question, everybody's asking is, how can you stay competitive in a world where both one-on-one personalized experiences as well as increased consumer data privacy must coexist? Again, hot topics right now. I know you talk about this in your book. What are some of the highlights that you can share with our listeners?
Yeah, so this ties into what's called a first-party data strategy, and that is anyone doing a lot of advertising online right now, you are relying on a lot of what's called third-party data. So, it's not always clear where the information is coming from, but it's helping you to target people in a certain demographic or location or whatever the case may be. Because of all the data privacy concerns and regulations and everything, the idea is brands need to own more of their own customer data and collect their own customer data. At the same time, they need to justify why they're collecting it to those users, because consumers, rightfully so, because of all the data breaches and so on and so forth, they're reluctant to give information that isn't going to directly help them have a better experience or a better product. And so that first party data strategy is really how brands figure out, okay, let's ask for what we need, but only what we need, and let's justify and quickly show the benefits of sharing that information with us. And that builds trust, and that helps kind of mitigate all, many of the concerns around, consumers sharing information.
Absolutely. And we're running out of time, but I really want to talk about the people side of things. We've talked a lot about the experiences. We've talked a lot about some of those big picture goals that, again, businesses have to aspire to if they want to remain competitive and be customer centric. But let's talk about leadership. What is the role of leadership in your mind, Greg, in a customer first, employee driven brand?
Yeah, leaders need to lead by example, and they can't just say, again, we love our customers and we love our employees. They need to actually do it. And one big way they do this is prioritizing. There's lots of competing priorities. There's shareholders, there's other stakeholders, there's that needs for revenue and sometimes immediate revenue. But leaders need to lead by example by prioritizing. When there's something that puts the customer first, they actually prioritize that instead of just talking about it. Same thing with employees. If they value their employees, they need to do it with actions and not just with words. And I think that's where it starts.
Fantastic. It's a great read. I know you've got a podcast, you've got a book, you've got all sorts of content and information out there. And I want to make sure our listeners know where they can pick up a copy of the book, as well as stay in touch with you and your team, Greg. How can we do that?
Yeah, two things. So I have a website. It's gregkihlström.com. You can find my books and podcasts and all those things there. And then always happy to connect with people on LinkedIn as well. Just search for Greg Kihlström.
Fantastic. Greg, really appreciate your time, really appreciate your passion and expertise on this topic. Again, you're listening to Get Down to Business, the show all about small business jobs and entrepreneurship. Be sure you get on my website, shalomklein.com, and of course on your favorite podcast app. Just search on Spotify, Google, Apple. It really doesn't matter where, because we are in all of those locations and more. Just search for Get Down to Business. Make sure when you check out the podcast, make sure you rate, review, and share. It makes it even easier for others find out about all the show all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. We've been on the air for the past 10 years with some amazing guests. So chances are, if you're searching for a topic and searching for some advice, we've got it right there for you. And I always welcome feedback. So make sure you get on my website and through your podcast app. My contact information is right there. Always want to know what you think. We've got some headlines, commercials, quick break here on the show all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. Be right back after this quick break.